What if Aang didn't die at the end of his life, and his soul traveled back in time to the moment he woke up from the iceberg? Think about it. Sokka and Katara free Aang from the iceberg because of an accident on their fishing trip. Aang and Appa emerge from their frozen state. Aang wakes up shocked and confused. He remembers everything. His journey across the world, Zuko's pursuit, Omashu, the Northern War Tribe, the Day of Black Sun, Zozen's Comet, the final battle, energy bending. He remembers everything and realizes that he doesn't have to walk the same path again. With this second chance, he can stop the suffering far earlier than he did in his previous life. Unlike in the previous timeline, Aang is not consumed by guilt, so he doesn't hide his identity. He reveals that he is the Avatar, but the Southern tribe has a hard time believing him. He shows off his airbending and waterbending to earn their trust. He explains how he got caught in a storm 100 years ago and ended up frozen in the ice. The water tribe doesn't know how to react. Aang doesn't go penguin sledding and doesn't spend much time bonding with Katara. Instead, he stays isolated, meditating and making sure all his powers and mastery have truly returned. He's also waiting for another old friend to show up, and before long Zuko is there. Aang knows trying to reason with the current Zuko is a waste of time, so he makes his move. Before Zuko can threaten anyone in the water tribe, Aang uses waterbending to freeze the entire fleet. He traps every soldier, including Zuko, in solid ice. He steps forward and speaks to Zuko. Do you really think capturing me would restore your honor? That would only satisfy your father's ambitions. So is your honor completely dependent on your father's approval? Don't you play any role in it? Zuko is shocked. How do you know all this? Aang slightly touches Zuko's scar and gives a bitter smile. I hope we can become friends again, soon. He shatters the ice around the fleet and using both airbending and waterbending, sends the ship flying far away. Zuko is left stranded in the ice, drifting through the open sea, completely helpless. The last time he felt this powerless was when he stood before his father 3 years ago. Now he felt it again. Aang knows he could defeat the Fire Lord much sooner this time, but he also knows that he could not do it alone. Even with all the strength and knowledge he carries, he remembers one lesson from his past life better than anything else. He cannot bear the burden of this alone. Maybe he is strong enough to destroy the entire Fire Nation, but that would not bring peace. He needs to restore balance, not create more destruction. For that, he needs his friends beside him, and this time he knows exactly how to bring them together without wasting time. So he starts on his journey. Join me. I will bring down the Fire Lord and restore peace to the world. In return, I'll teach you waterbending and help you rebuild your tribe. Sokka and Katara decide to join him on his journey. Before long, they arrive at their first destination. Aang already knows what awaits him at the Southern Air Temple. He doesn't have to go there, but the thought of Gyatso's remains still lying there doesn't sit right with him. He goes there, gives him a proper farewell, and pays his respects. Even though he had already seen this destruction once before, it still stinks, confirming that this second chance is real. After paying his respects, Aang heads out to recruit his first allies, and he immediately regrets the decision. The Kyoshi warriors. Unlike in the original timeline, Aang and his friends land directly in the center of the village instead of getting captured. I am Aang, the Avatar. I need to talk to your village chief. Oyaji, the village chief, welcomes the Avatar and his friends. I need your help in this war. Aang asks Oyaji directly, but Oyaji remains firm about maintaining their neutrality in this 100-year war. Even Aang's status as the Avatar doesn't sway him. Aang and the team stay there as guests. Aang spends his time trying to figure out a way to convince Oyaji. He knows Zuko might come here as well, but he isn't too worried about that. But instead of Zuko, this time, it's General Zhao's fleet that arrives. Aang was caught off guard. Zhao's soldiers are a lot more ruthless. They attack the village without a second thought. Aang is furious. The fact that he caused this eats away at him, and he makes his move. He first uses earthbending to trap all the firebenders. He buries them in the ground, leaving only their heads exposed so they can breathe. Then, using waterbending, he freezes the ships before tearing them apart. He stops the attack almost instantly, but by then most of Kyoshi village is already burned. Aang interrogates Admiral Zhao and realizes what happened. Because of Aang, Zuko and his soldiers are injured. So when they encountered Zhao's fleet, Zuko was in no condition to challenge Zhao to an Agni Kai, like he did in the original timeline. As a result, the information that was supposed to reach Zuko ended up in Zhao's hands instead, bringing his entire fleet here. In fact, Zuko and Iroh have already been taken captive by Zhao's fleet. Aang realizes he has to be far more careful with his actions. He was able to stop it this time, but he might not be able to next time. But there is one silver lining in all of this. The Kyoshi warriors realize that the Fire Nation's ambitions won't leave them alone, so they decide to help Aang. While most of the villagers go into hiding, the Kyoshi warriors begin their journey to Omashu under Aang's instructions. Meanwhile, Aang approaches the captured Admiral Zhao and attempts to use energy bending on him, but he fails. He realizes what he's lacking. While he still has the memories, knowledge, and experience, his current body's not trained enough to handle it. The flexibility needed for water bending, the core strength required for earth bending, and the spiritual stability necessary for energy bending. He can still do most of the moves, but his senses, muscles, and body are not yet in the condition needed to execute them perfectly. For that, he needs to train. While the Kyoshi warriors travel there on foot, Aang and his friends fly to Omashu on Appa. On the way, Aang constantly trains his body while also teaching Katara. Without taking any detours, they reach Omashu within a few days. Aang tries to bypass Bumi's usual antics and meet him directly, but Bumi refuses to make it easy. Aang goes along with the challenges, proves he's far beyond them, and finally gets an audience with Bumi. He asks Bumi for a few things. The first is preparing Omashu for the coming war, and the second is to train the Kyoshi warriors in reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. He knows Omashu is going to be taken over by the Fire Nation soon. Keeping his earlier mistake in mind, he avoids changing the timeline too drastically. Instead, he quietly sets certain pieces in place to use later to his advantage. They continue their journey after their meeting with Bumi. This time, Aang heads straight for Roku's temple. Not only do they face almost no resistance, Aang quickly wipes out the Fire Nation forces stationed there. He enters the inner chambers and talks to Roku. "I came back in time. This is my second chance." He reveals everything to Roku, hoping to gain some insight into his situation. But even Roku has no answers, because even Roku has never heard of something like this happening before. There, Aang tells Roku about energy bending and discusses the fastest way to bring his body back to its optimal condition. After finishing his meeting with Roku, Aang completely avoids the confrontation with the pirates. Zuko still chases after him with everything he has, but Aang simply keeps leading him around. He really wishes he could just get his friends back, but he knows Zuko still has to go through his journey before he can truly change. But there is one person who's about to get a harsh reality check: Jet. Aang knows what kind of twisted plan Jet has for taking out the Fire Nation forces. Not only does Aang allow Jet to make his move, he also helps eliminate the Fire Nation forces without harming a single innocent civilian. The entire village praises Aang, Jet, Sokka, Katara, and the rest of Jet's group as heroes. As Jet sees the villagers celebrating, he realizes the people he was willing to sacrifice were not just meaningless collateral damage. Jet begins changing far earlier in this timeline. Aang is satisfied with the outcome. Having gained another ally, Aang considers heading to Ba Sing Se first, but new intelligence from Bumi changes his plans. Soon, Aang, Sokka, and Katara arrive at the Northern Water Tribe, only to be met with a devastating sight. Zhao's fleet, far larger than it was in the original timeline, has already besieged the Northern Water Tribe. By the time they arrive, the Northern Tribe has already been under attack for days, and all of this happened because of him. Because of the brutal defeat under Aang's hands, Zhao wanted to reclaim his glory, and he saw the invasion of the Water Tribe as a perfect opportunity. Driven by rage, he brought far more troops than before, intending to wipe out the Water Tribe entirely. Aang sends Appa ahead with Katara and Sokka while he dives off on his glider, attacking the fleet from behind. Aang's sudden appearance catches Zhao off guard, but Zhao is thrilled by it. Without needing the ocean spirit's help, Aang enters the Avatar state and sinks more than half the fleet. He tears through the battlefield before helping the waterbenders fight off the remaining troops. This time, Aang does not spare him. He uses energy bending on Admiral Zhao, removing his bending. He then sends Zhao back to the Fire Nation alongside a handful of surviving soldiers, and a message to the Fire Lord: "You are next." Under Aang's guidance, the Water Tribe finally makes its move. They send support to the Southern Tribe, while their naval fleet moves to reinforce the Southern forces. Meanwhile, Aang heads to the Northern Air Temple. This time he makes sure the Mechanist never supplies the Fire Nation. He destroys the airships before they can be delivered and wipes out the Fire Nation forces stationed there. As for the commanders, he strips them of their bending and sends them back to the Fire Nation. Soon, rumors spread across the world that the Avatar can take bending away, and the morale of the Fire Nation army begins to crumble. By the time Aang finishes at the Northern Air Temple, news reaches him that Omashu has fallen. In the original timeline, he tried his best to rescue Bumi, but in the end he left him behind, letting him wait for the right moment. But this time Aang is not here to free Bumi. He has a different goal in mind. So he enters Omashu secretly. Just like before, Azula arrives to recruit Mai and Ty Lee. Aang spreads the Pentapox rumor to throw the city into chaos. Azula is surprised by this development. The news spreads that avatars entered the city. After investigating, Azula discovers Aang's location and moves to ambush him alongside her forces, Mai and Ty Lee. But instead she walks straight into Aang's trap. The Earthbender resistance launches its prepared traps against the Fire Nation soldiers. The Kyoshi warriors make their move as well. Azula, Mai and Ty Lee are quickly overwhelmed. Aang and Azula clash head-on with firebending. The moment Azula unleashes lightning, Aang redirects it effortlessly. Azula is captured. She sees Aang's fingers moving towards her forehead and is terrified. She heard the rumors, of course. No, you can't do this, she completely panics. You are dangerous through and through. I cannot allow you to keep hurting people. Aang uses energy bending on her and takes her bending away. Aang was hesitant about taking her bending away, but after weighing the danger Azula posed, he decided it was better to stop her now before things escalated further. Not only is Omashu reclaimed, but Bumi is also tasked with building the forces needed to fight the Fire Nation. By this time, Aang has already wiped out many of the Fire Nation's strongholds across the Earth Kingdom, and because of his actions, the Fire Nation has become far more active and aggressive in its response, especially after rumors began spreading that Aang planned to attack the Fire Lord during the Day of the Black Sun. From Omashu, Aang heads straight to recruit Toph. He enters the tournament and manages to outmatch Toph using her own techniques. After that, things play out mostly like the original timeline. Toph joins them in pursuit of the freedom she always wanted. Then, the entire team heads to Ba Sing Se. On the journey there, Aang continues training until his body finally reaches its peak condition. Meanwhile, Katara grows far stronger far earlier than she originally did. With a few hits from Aang, Toph already begins experimenting with metal bending. The crew reaches Ba Sing Se soon. The moment Aang enters the city, chaos erupts. Several riots break out all over the city. Nobody knows what's happening. Every guard and Dai Li agent is mobilized, taking advantage of the chaos. Aang breaks into the palace to meet the Earth King. He confronts Long Feng directly and exposes him on the spot. Only then does he reveal that the riots were part of his own plan. Jet and his crew had already been sent into Ba Sing Se ahead of time, waiting for the signal. Long Feng is swiftly dealt with. Aang convinces the king to prepare his army just like before. But before any preparations can truly begin, the Fire Nation launches its attack. Zuko and Iroh, already hiding inside the city in disguise, suddenly find themselves trapped in a difficult situation. Iroh is against fighting Aang and his friends, but when Zuko learns that he has been ordered to lead the pursuit of the Avatar, he finds himself torn. He learns that Azula lost her bending, which means he has suddenly become Ozai's only heir. This time, Aang feels genuinely disappointed by Zuko's actions. He truly believes Zuko would have started changing by now. Of course, there is still time, so he defeats Zuko decisively and sends him fleeing, hoping that the next time they meet, Zuko will finally be ready to become his friend again. In this timeline, Aang never suffers his near-fatal injury, so there is no long recovery period slowing them down. He prepares disguises for the group and infiltrates the Fire Nation alongside them. Their first stop is reuniting Sokka with his swordmaster. While Sokka focuses on his sword training, Aang scouts the Fire Nation and prepares for the coming invasion. But while all of this is happening, Aang makes sure to avoid one specific event, Katara ever learning bloodbending. Instead, he quietly takes Hama down himself, making sure Katara never has to carry the burden of learning bloodbending. And as preparations continue, it doesn't take long before the Day of Black Sun arrives. On the Day of the Black Sun, the Fire Lord, like in the original timeline, relocates all of his core forces. Nearly every major fleet is repositioned across the world, but most of them walk straight into ambushes set by the Water Tribe Navy and Earth Kingdom forces. But in the Fire Nation capital, Aang never makes his move at all. Zuko waits for him there, but Aang never appears. Zuko's left simmering in frustration. Meanwhile, Arrow sits imprisoned in his cell, still hoping his nephew will eventually change. News of the Day of Black Sun spreads like wildfire. This is the biggest loss for the Fire Nation. Many of the Fire Nation's colonies are abandoned almost overnight. The Fire Lord's reputation completely collapses. He was feared as the conqueror, the tyrant trying to dominate the world. But in the eyes of the world, Aang forced him into hiding, like a coward. And once people learned that Aang never appeared in the capital, the humiliation only grew worse. Aang and his friends go to the Western Air Temple. Aang continues training while waiting for Zuko to finally appear. But days pass, and Zuko never comes. Instead, one day, Combustion Man arrives at the temple. Aang is deeply disappointed. He confronts the Combustion Man and uses the same firebending techniques he once learned from Zuko to defeat him. In the previous timeline, this was the assassin sent to kill him, on Zuko's orders. He hoped Zuko wouldn't do the same again. Especially with Azula out of the picture, he truly believed Zuko would have started moving past that hatred by now. Days pass, but Zuko is nowhere to be seen. It is the final day of Sozin's comet. Aang can no longer wait for him and launches his final attack on the Fire Nation. His friends focus on holding back the Fire Lord's forces, and then he sees it. Just as Aang is about to confront the Fire Lord, he sees Zuko standing in his way. Why are you still like this? Why didn't you change? Your honor is never in your father's hands. Why can't you understand that? Aang's voice nearly breaks as he speaks to his old friend. Stop talking like you know me. You don't know anything. I will defeat you today and I will restore my honor. Zuko fights like a man consumed by rage. His firebending destroys everything around him. Aang only defends, desperately trying to bring his friend back to his senses. But no matter what he does, Zuko doesn't back down. At one point, Zuko shifts to lightning bending, and for the first time, Aang begins to lose hope. He uses the same technique Zuko taught him in the previous lifetime. He redirects the lightning and brings Zuko down. I am sorry. With tears in his eyes, he knocks Zuko unconscious. Still carrying that same heartbreak, he finally confronts Fire Lord Ozai. Aang overwhelms Ozai with terrifying ease. The fight almost feels anticlimactic. He enters the Fire Lord's palace, the palace that twisted his friend into this. Then he sees Azula touching the throne of the Fire Lord with a crazy expression. She turns to Aang and says, I can't believe you even outlived that assassin. You even destroyed my father. I lost everything. We lost everything. She bursts into a maniacal laughter. At that moment, Zuko ambushes Aang from behind. I will kill you. I will kill you. Zuko rushes forward with lightning bending. Aang continues redirecting the attacks. I don't want to do this, Zuko. Don't make me do this. He tries to restrain him, but Zuko refuses to stop. He just screams and yells. I will kill all of you, all of your friends, everyone you love. I will not let you go, no matter how many years it takes. And that is what finally breaks Aang. He suppresses Zuko and then uses energy bending on him. The Fire Lord is defeated. Zuko has lost his bending, and Azula is beyond saving. Aang asks Iroh to become the next Fire Lord and quietly leaves. Subscribe, my boy!